Sweet YouTube, welcome back to another of my videos. Today what we're going to be doing is I am going to be looking at the representation in Fire Emblem as a franchise. So I've been doing these videos a little while. I've done The Last of Us Part 2, I've done Ghost of Tsushima, I've done a game called Gone Home. So I thought we would do Fire Emblem as a franchise just for a little bit of a change, and the fact there is a lot of queer representation throughout all of the franchise and I couldn't just pick one game to focus in on. So what we're going to do in this video is we're just going to go through a timeline of the representation, and I'm just going to give my opinion on it as a gay person. The first Fire Emblem game was released in Japan in 1990 and was recently localized in 2020, which was Fire Emblem and the Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light. But in the original game, the gameplay was very basic and focused more on strategy than the story or the backstory of the characters. It is just pretty much a tactical role-playing Fire Emblem. So there was no LGBT representation in this first game, but it was kind of like, the thing that started the whole franchise. The next game in the series was Fire Emblem Gaiden, which was released in March 1992. Again, the gameplay focused more on strategy, however this game did extend on the story portion of the game a little bit more. The game was also re-released worldwide on 3DS and was remade from the ground up, which added support conversations between units, which is absent from the original version of the game on the Famicom. This version was called Fire Emblem Shadows of Valencia, and it is one that I have played and I absolutely loved it, and I absolutely love the characters in this game. And this entry of Fire Emblem does include an LGBT character called Leon. In both versions, Leon has a close relationship with Valbar, who is an ex-civilian soldier. However, in the original Gaiden, it appears to be more of a brother bond, but in echoes during the support conversations, Leon's feelings are shown to be more romantic. There's no real happy ending for these two because it's basically Leon has fallen in love with Valbar. His whole kind of story arc is to avenge his family. It just so happens that Leon, kind of falls in love with a straight man and he never ever gets his happy ending, which sucks. I would have really loved to see those two actually, because they would have been cute together. Poor Leon. He deserved so much better. It is an accurate representation of something that does happen to gay people. Gay people fall for straight people all the time. It happens a lot. The next game on this list is Fire Emblem Mystery of the Emblem, and it was the third entry of the franchise in the Super Famicom. It was a remake of the first game, which was titled Book 1, and its sequel, Book 2. I couldn't find anything about this game or the next to that entry on this list, which is Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War. I couldn't find anything about those in terms of LGBTQ+ representation, so we're just going to move on to the next entry in this list, which is Fire Emblem Trachea 779. There are two characters in this game who could be considered to be queer coded, or it's heavily implied through their conversations or the way they act that they could be gay. And they are Dagdar and Marty. Although most sources claim that these two shared a close brotherly or fatherly bond, some people seem to think that their relationship could be considered romantic due to the fact that Marty's ending was called The Man That Dagdar Loved. However, their relationship will probably never be confirmed like a lot of these queer coded couples we're going to talk about on this list, unless these games get a modern remake. But I would really love it if these two were the first ever queer couple in the Fire Emblem series, so on my list, they are. The next game in the series is Fire Emblem and the Binding Blade. This was the first Game Boy Advance Fire Emblem and was the last entry that was exclusive to Japan. Even though I couldn't find any information on queer characters in this game, it was the first game that included support, which is a mechanic that deepens a relationship between two characters and opens up a side story with those two characters as you go up a support rank. This support, or in some cases dating mechanic, meant that there was now a potential for Fire Emblem to show and write queer relationships. Good on you, Binding Blades. We love you for adding support, because support conversations is one of my favourite things about Fire Emblem. It just makes the characters seem like more than just pieces that you move about the battlefield, and potential for gay. We love that here. Originally, the series up until this point was only released in Japan, so these next entries on the list are ones that were released in both Europe and other PAL regions as well as North America. The first one being Fire Emblem The Blazing Blade. So there's a character in this game called Bramond, and he was originally assigned male at birth, but through mastering dark magic, They no longer have a gender or personality. So although it is never officially stated in the game, they are considered by fans to be agender. It's so cool we have an agender character in the Fire Emblem series. I mean, they literally just zapped away their gender like that. That's pretty cool. Kinda sucked to have no personality though, but having no gender, that would be cool for people who wouldn't want to have one, you know? As well as having an agender character, there is also some queer-coded couples, like Raven and Lucius, whose support conversations seem to have a romantic undertone rather than just a brotherly one, and Lindis and Florina, who during their paired ending, Lynn asked Florina to spend forever with her. Which, if you ask me, that's pretty gay. Another point about Lucius is the way that he dresses. He dresses quite feminine, and players of the game have actually mistaken him for female during their playthroughs, but maybe he is non-binary or gender non-conforming, or maybe he just likes to dress not according to the gender binary, which of course we love and support around here. The next entry on this list is one of my favourite games of all time, and that is Fire Emblem and the Sacred Stones. There are two queer-coded couples in this game, and they are Joshua and Girk and Ephraim and Loin. So Joshua and Girk are both mercenaries. Girk being a leader of a band of mercenaries, and Joshua just likes fighting, gambling, and trying his luck, basically. They have an ending together in this game where Girk says he wants to spend the rest of his life fighting by Joshua's side. However, like most of the entries on this list, it's not confirmed if these two are bi or just bros. And then we have Ephraim and Loin. So Ephraim is one of the protagonists in Sacred Stones. There's two. There's Erica, and then they're twins, and Ephraim as well. And Loin is the childhood best friends of both of the twins. And some players have read their relationship as being more than just friends and more romantic, as Loin doesn't seem to differ the way he talks to Ephraim and his twin sister Erica. So again, Loin and Ephraim could potentially be bi. The next Fire Emblem game in this series is one of the rarest and most expensive Fire Emblem games currently, and it's on the GameCube, and that is Fire Emblem Path of Radiance. So Path of Radiance, there are a few potential queer relationships like Jill and Mist, Raisin and Tabarn, but the main and most likely canon gay relationship is Ike and Sauron. So Ike and Sauron have an extremely close relationship, and in the game it even states that Ike doesn't take an interest in women despite lots of women being interested in him. If Ike and Sauron achieve A rank support during the support conversation, Sauron says to Ike, "You're the only one that is special to me." I mean, come on. I just want it to be true. The next entry of the Fire Emblem series was Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn, and it was a sequel of the last game, which is Path of Radiance. Oh yes, 100% this has to be the gayest Fire Emblem. So let's get into this one, because there's quite a lot of queer relationships, queer references and stuff in this one. But let's start off with the one we've already mentioned, which is Ike and Sauron's story. So there's a hidden skit that is available in the game that is only accessible if the player has cleared the game once, has imported a save from a previous Fire Emblem where Ike and Sauron have A rank support, and then you have to have achieved A rank again between the two characters in this game and have unlocked all of Ike's sealed memories. And on top of that, you have to keep Sauron alive for the entire game. It's quite a lot. So the hidden scene is where Sauron embraces Ike, and this is referenced again in another Fire Emblem book called The Moment Where Their Two Hearts Become One. That's pretty gay. But this hidden skit, to me, pretty much confirms that that they're in a relationship. But the thing for me that really annoys me about this is the amount of hoops you have to go through just to see this scene play out. Like, you have already completed both Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn at this point, and like, to get the actual queer representation, you have to go back over the game again. So yeah, it's tough to get the actual representation out of this, and I think it is a bit weird that the skit was hidden, and I think maybe it was a decision at Nintendo. But now let's get into the new characters in this game who are queer, starting with Heather. Heather is a canon lesbian, we love here. I'm also a canon lesbian, and in all versions of the game, it states that she joined the army just to talk to cute women. I love Heather. She sounds great. We also have Alicia and Lucina, who share a close bond, and one of Lucia's endings has the text, "Where the queen went, Lucia followed. Their love is fabled to be stronger than even most blood sisters." So this could be a reference to them being more friends, or it could be a reference to them just being very close friends. We don't really know, because that's the only time that love is mentioned between the two, but I would argue that, like, love stronger than blood sisters, that sounds like a pretty serious relationship that they've got going on there. We also have another character called Kaizen. He's a member of the Lager's Beast Tribe, and is an openly gay character, just like Heather is. And he is in love with his supervisor called Ranulf. However, he only appears to be openly gay in the Japanese version of the game. So in the European and the North American release, they actually removed his kind of like, in the Japanese version he uses more feminine speech patterns and he has this attraction to his supervisor, but this was completely removed in the European and the North American versions of the game, which I think sucks that they removed this, because they basically made a queer character and then took away the queer character for the Western audience, which sucks. Some players have also speculated that Kaizen could be trans, due to the fact that, you know, he has feminine speech patterns in the Japanese version of the game. And in the Fire Emblem 20th Anniversary Encyclopedia, Kaizen is titled "The body is male, but the heart is female." So this could be just a reference to him being gay, or it could be a reference that he is male to female trans. But we'll never know, because Nintendo don't really deep dive into these things too much. But I would like Kaizen to be trans, because I think that would be really cool if he was the first trans character in Fire Emblem. I think that would be really, really cool. After a long hiatus from a new Fire Emblem entry, it came back with a passion in 2012. So the first game in this kind of resurgence of Fire Emblem was Fire Emblem Awakening. So this game included S rank, which was a brand new support rank, which meant that units that had achieved S rank had basically a romance option and could have a child together to fight for them. God, I'm so glad they removed that in Three Houses. However, because of this mechanic, there were no queer relationships in the game, because same-sex couples can't have kids biologically. So in theory, it makes sense why there's no queer couples, but I think that they should have put some queer options in the game. Even just have, like, the main protagonists that needed to have, like, generation units, let them just be straight. And then maybe have, like, some of the smaller units be able to have queer relationships. Maybe that's maybe how they could have got that mechanic to work, but I think that just vetoing same-sex relationships completely because of the mechanic that they put in place with, like, the generations, I don't know, I don't like that. I don't understand how, like, an entry from 1999 can literally be more inclusive than a game made in 2012. It just sucks that Awakening didn't have any representation at all when they could have done it. So let's move on to the next entry, which is Fire Emblem Fates. However, again, Fates is another entry that is a little messy in terms of LGBTQ plus representation. And it was made in 2015, so it really didn't have an excuse. So the first thing to note about Fates is that they tried to do like a kind of Pokemon thing. So there was actually two versions, which is Birthright and Conquest. However, there are queer parents in this game. So they did actually, somehow, they still have a child mechanic in this game, but there are queer units. However, they're not very good because there's only two options. And on top of there only being two options, only the main character, Corrin, can be gay in the game. So the two queer pairings that the main character can pair up with is Niles and Rajat, both of which are actually missable units in the game because Rajat is a child unit only and she's only available in Birthright, and Niles is in both games but largely features in Conquest. So basically by the time you'd meet him in Birthright, you wouldn't have time to romance him before finishing the game. For this entry, it's like the representation is sort of there, but it still sucks that to get the options, there's still like stuff that you have to do to get the options in the game. You know, like Rajat only being a child unit, only being available in one game and that sort of thing. And we're not even done yet. There was some controversy with Fates as well. The controversy came with Fire Emblem Fates and a character called Soleil, and she is known for having crushes on girls and being really nervous about them, but she isn't given any romance options with women. She was done dirty in this game, basically. But here's a controversial bit. In the Japanese version of the game, Soleil asks the protagonist for help focusing on her work as a mercenary. The protagonist, over the course of their relationship, slips a magic powder into her drink, causing her to see people as the opposite gender as they are. And in her final support conversation, proposes to her. She accepts and says that she loved seeing the protagonist as a girl, but has begun to love him as a boy as well. I don't even know where to start. That is not okay. The reason obviously it was controversial is because some people seen it as kind of like date rape, but it wasn't actually meant to be implied that way. Soleil does have other romance options with men. I think they wanted her to be a bisexual character, but they couldn't give her any romance options with women because the only protagonist in the game that had romance options was Corin, like gay romance options. So I think that's why they wanted like a man-leaning bisexual. But this scene, I don't think they thought about much. It's not good representation at all. But we do have a little bit of a saving grace here. In the English version of the game, the scene has been changed where the male protagonist helps Soleil by blindfolding her so she can focus on her practice, which I think was definitely a good shout by the localization team, because that makes like the whole conversation situation a lot more consensual. Even though in the game Soleil only has romance options with men, in the English version of the game, she only ends up with one character who's named Forrest, who identifies as a cishet man, but likes to dress up as a woman and doesn't like to adhere to traditional gender roles, which we again love to see. And I think that Forrest was a fantastic pairing choice for Soleil in the English version of Fates. So Forrest could be trans or gender non-conforming or just a man that likes to do drag, which I think is so cool. So even though the Japanese version of the game mightn't be the best representation, I think that the localization team for the English version of the game done an absolutely fantastic job, and Soleil is given a better romance option with Forrest, who I think's a really awesome character as well. Fates kind of redeems itself near the end, but still a pretty messy Fire Emblem for LGBT representation. And now we get into the newest entry in the Fire Emblem franchise, the one and only, my favourite game of 2019, Fire Emblem Three Houses. So this game is more open world than previous entries, and allows the player to form deeper relationships with the other characters. So in this game you can choose to be male or female Byleth, and both of them have queer romantic options. Female Byleth has 5 queer pairings and male Byleth has 3. However, is a little bit of controversy with male Byleth. If male Byleth does get S rank with either Aloise or Gilbert, it won't end in marriage. Instead, the protagonist will marry a random village girl. You romance a boy and you end up with the girl. Somebody make it make sense. So the only gay pairing to end in a marriage for male Byleth is actually Linhardt. I do think it is a bit of a missed opportunity that male Byleth doesn't have more queer romance options like female Byleth does. And let's face it, Claude should have been bi. He flirts with everyone, including the male characters. However, I do think that Fire Emblem Three Houses had much better representation than any other Fire Emblem to date. So let's hope that Fire Emblem continues to go down this path of better representation for the LGBTQ+ community. The representation in this series as a whole could be improved, but I think that Three Houses showed that Nintendo and Intelligent Systems are on the right track in regards to representation. I think that in the older games, the reason why it felt like gay relationships weren't fully explored was because it's Nintendo, and it was early 90s, 2000 Nintendo, where queer relationships would have probably steered audiences away from buying Nintendo products and stuff like that. And Nintendo just didn't want to probably chance it because of their like family friendly, the way that their marketing is. However, I do feel that recently Nintendo is getting a bit more comfortable, as are other big game publishers like Sony and Xbox, with putting representation in their games and companies. So that was my opinion on the representation in the Fire Emblem series. I really hope you guys did enjoy this video. It just took a lot of work, and I also tried out a new editing style, and I really hope that you guys enjoyed it. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, please a big thumbs up, and also subscribe, love, and hopefully I will see you guys in the next video.